Kaijus are probably the most efficient pieces of removal the game has to offer. Not for anything the cards do on the field, but rather what they accomplish from the hand. Tributing an opponent's monster as part of a summoning condition gets around almost any sort of protection a single creature might come packed with. Even being unaffected by all card effects won't keep you safe because, well, there's no effect involved. Nothing short of an aversion to being tributed is going to keep a monster safe from being transmogrified into a kaiju, but it doesn't really have a strong payoff. Like, you're turning a big boss into what amounts to a vanilla creature, but that's about where the story ends. No follow through, no bigger impact, you just end up with a giant turtle. This is why Kaiju is less of a deck in its current form, and is more of a fun splash in other decks, despite the numerous support cards they have access to. But what if I told you there was another way? Another card that unlocked the power to spend your opponent's monsters as currency to cash in powerful, devastating effects. Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Get your cloaks on and get ready to wade into the depths where no light can reach, and maybe bring a few trap cards along for the ride. You're gonna need them, cause it's time for the Lair of Darkness Explained. Lair of Darkness is a field spell card that makes all face-up monsters on the field dark attribute. Once per turn, if you attribute a monster you control to activate a card effect, you can attribute a dark monster your opponent controls, even though you don't control it. Once per turn, during the end phase, special summon as many torment tokens as possible to the turn player's field in defense position, up to the number of monsters tributed this turn while this card is face up, and those tokens are level 3 Dark Fiend monsters with 1000 attack and defense. More than any other card we talk about in this video, monster or no, this is the big boss of the deck, as it enables the nastiest way to play the game. So long as there's a dark monster on your opponent's side of the field, which as long as they're face up, the Lair will make for you, you can steal them to pay for your effects. With enemy controller, you can tribute an opponent's monster to steal another one, or you can play Ballista Squad to tribute one of their monsters to destroy any of their cards. A lot of these game pieces exist in a way that are pretty mid because of that required tribute, but become truly devastating when you get to force your opponent to pay the ticket price. And that's not even the whole of it. Turning everything into darks can enable you to play cards that otherwise wouldn't fit into your strategy, and can have some disruptive effects on decks that care about being anything else. You even get some bodies when you're done with your discount shopping spree too, depending on whose turn it is. The wording is a little strange, so to help clear things up, the person who gets the tokens isn't the one who has their stuff taken, but rather they all go to whomever's turn is ending at the time. So if you have Lair and you end your turn, you get all the tokens for chomping your opponent's monsters. But if you do the same thing during your opponent's turn, they get the tokens when things wind down. This is probably here to keep people from tributing off the opposite board during the end phase of the opposing player's turn, so you can go in for the direct kill, but then you could have just saved a lot of that tributing for when you go back around to your own turn, so I guess it's just a neat little thematic touch. The souls tormented by the Lord of the Lair are stuck here forevermore to be used at the Dark Master's whim. But you're going to find that things get cramped pretty quickly around here. Turns out the souls of the departed take up a lot of room. So now that we've covered the Lair, let's go over a few monsters associated with it. Well, with is a strong word. There's really no mechanical connection between these cards other than them being dark, a lot of them being fiends. Tributing is involved, and normal trap cards are present most of the time. Basically, the rest of the inclusions in this video are vibes based, with the included cards being the new releases from the Lair of Darkness restructure deck, based on the Curse of Darkness structure deck that we never got here in the TCG, as well as monsters related to those monsters, which means that this is a stealth Lady of Lament explained. Alice, Lady of Lament, is a level 3 Dark Fiend monster with 0 attack and 2000 defense, and when normal summoned, you can target a Lady of Lament monster in your grave and special summon it. You can banish a trap card from your hand or grave to special summon this card from your hand, and if this card is tributed, or if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can add a Fiend monster whose combined attack and defense equal 2000 from your deck to your hand, except a copy of itself. And wouldn't you know it, all of the Lady of Lament monsters have that combined stat total. So the other 3 lovely ladies we talk about soon will be within arm's reach, but we can also look outside for a bevy of great options. Black Eyes is one of the best Plunder Patrol monsters to have on hand. Barrier Statue of the Abyss is here for all of you stunned cretins out there. Clear Phantom sets up any clear world strategies you'd like to employ, and Neroy the Dream Mirror Trader can set up their deck pretty easily. And that's not even getting into the other effects. It's a little sad to see that one doesn't lead into another, but I guess that might have been a bit too much value. The free summon can pair with any of your other level 3 monsters that you have on the field to make a rank 3 play. Turns out there are a lot of level 3 fiend monsters out there ready to stack on top of each other, and normal summoning Alice can get you another body like that in the form of a Lady of Lament. Though this doesn't negate the summoned monster's effects, and we have some pretty silly ones to take advantage of. So you'll be getting a lot of value before you turn them into a Ghost Trick Alucard, or a Dante, or heaven forbid, a Giga Brilliant. Granted, there are a lot more rank 3 monsters to choose from, but that's a rabbit hole you're gonna have to fall down on your own time. Lilith, Lady of Lament, is a level 3 Dark Fiend monster with 2000 attack and 0 defense, and if this card is normal summoned, its original attack becomes 1000. As a quick effect, you contribute a Dark monster to reveal 3 normal trap cards from your deck, your opponent randomly chooses 1 for you to set to your field, and you shuffle the rest back into your deck. This was one of the cards that debuted in the Lair of Darkness structure deck, and it's still a doozy. With Lair active, not only are you taking your opponent's monsters to set up a trap card to use as further interaction, this is a quick effect, so you can just pluck the monster whenever you want during their own turn to get you another piece of interaction. So you're either going to have to use a spell or trap card to get rid of this, or find 2 decently sized monsters, or at least ones with effects to deal with Lilith, before you can get a shot at clearing her off the field. And you better hope she was normal summoned so you have the option of taking her down with a traditional normal summon, because 2000 attack on a level 3 is no joke. Granted, this can only really work in the most dedicated of trap card decks, and even then, it can't just be counters and continuous ones. You're gonna need a litany of normal trap cards to make this work. Though the upside is, if you run any particular ones in 3 copies and you really need them, you can just reveal all of those copies as the options, since there's no clause saying you have to pick 3 different normal trap cards. I fail to think of a situation in which this card isn't at least very threatening, even if it isn't meta. Though to be fair, that thinking does come from her being on my mind all the time. You know, I think the red-haired Hime-cut demon lady with the evil smirk that eats my monsters would save me. Loris, Lady of Lament, is a level 3 Dark Fiend monster with 1500 attack and 500 defense, and it can target 3 or 6 of your normal trap cards that are banished and or are in your grave, place them on the bottom of your deck in any order, then draw a card for every 3 cards placed. And if any number of other monsters are tributed, or if any number of normal trap cards are sent to your grave by an opponent's card effect, except during the damage step, you can target a normal trap card in your grave and set it. Wowzers, this is kind of scary, isn't it? Like, you've got near infinite recursion for your trap cards while getting you draw power, and it gets you trap cards back from your grave just for doing what you'd normally be doing? Having to see a monster get tributed is comically easy in the deck made entirely of taking advantage of the tributing mechanic. Heck, the trap cards you get can help to keep the heat off of Loris while this maniacal menace keeps recycling all of your interaction. You know, I'm starting to think that what Loris is pointing to is the massive L that you dropped while trying to figure out a counterplay, and buddy, you're gonna have to carry it. Malice, Lady of Lament, is a level 3 Dark Fiend monster with 1000 attack and defense, and as a quick effect, you contribute 2 monsters, then target one of your normal trap cards that is banished or is in your grave, and set that target, but place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. This one is... I don't know how to feel about it. Like Lilith, it can tribute monsters at quick speed, which is good, but you have to feed it 2 monsters, not just 1. Now, if Lair of Darkness allowed you to tribute your opponent's monsters as much as you'd like, this would be a total bomb card, but Lair can only help you eat 1 monster per turn, so at best, you get to use an opponent's monster, but you still have to use one of your own to fulfill the cost. Granted, this can still help enable your other game plans. Alice, oh, I see what you did there, triggers their Fiend Search, while Loris, seeing another monster being tributed, gets you a trap card back. So it's not all bad, but it is a lot more clunky than our other offerings. Also, I thought I was supposed to do something when we banished this? Are we missing some card text? I mean, this is a modern card. This should have 2 or 3 effects. One seems pretty tame by today's standards. Arima the Wicked Warden is a level 4 Dark Fiend monster with 1700 attack and 0 defense that you can discard to add a Layer of Darkness from your deck to your hand. You can also tribute a dark monster while on the field to draw you a card, or if you tributed a dark monster other than this card to activate this effect, you can add a dark monster with 2000 or more defense from your deck to your hand instead. Whoa, a monster you can discard to search a field spell, you don't see those every day. This is an indispensable member of the team, giving you double the amount of Lair of Darknesses in your deck to make sure your game plan is online. And if you've already got Lair in rotation, great, because it also has a baller tributing effect to go along with it. If you don't have anything in mind that you want to grab, you can just tribute a monster to get a draw to dig through your deck, but if you need a big, chonky dark monster, Arima's got you covered, including a pretty slick combo that works alongside our most famous monster to get them onto the field almost immediately. And honestly, the family wouldn't be complete without him. We already have the neurodivergent dad, the male mom, and the daughter, so we gotta have the woke dog. Duke Shade, the Sinister Shadow Lord, is a level 4 Dark Fiend monster with 500 attack and 2000 defense, and you can tribute any number of dark monsters to special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, it gains 500 attack for each monster you tributed. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target a level 5 or higher dark monster in your grave and add it to your hand. But you can't special summon monsters the turn you activate either of this card's effects, except dark monsters. Oh, so it looks like they added a kaiju to the Lair of Darkness lineup. Turns out that preamble wasn't just a lot of fluff. It was just mostly fluff. This is a fun way to out an opponent's monster while simultaneously tributing any of yours that have a benefit when being eaten up, while getting you back a card for later. Otherwise, this is just a kind of utility piece, another tool for your toolbox, if you will. If I had to speculate, and I will, this might be a fixed version of a card that came out in the original version of the Lair of Darkness structure deck, Lich Lord, King of the Underworld, which I don't include here because while they care about dark monsters and being tributed, being a zombie and having no other synergy just doesn't feel like it fits the vibe. That monster recurs itself from the grave if it's tributed by a card effect, but Duke Shade can grab any level 5 or higher dark monster in your graveyard, so you don't have to pick up what is essentially a vanilla. The attack gain might also be a nod to another original structure deck monster, Prometheus, King of the Shadows, though that connection is a bit more tenuous. Duke Shade is pretty nifty, but I think we need to work on the name here. You don't need to put Sinister in the title, Duke. It's coming through in the fit. It's coming through in the giant ominous hand, and it is sure as heck coming through in that gay little sit of yours. We get it! Tlakelel, his malevolent majesty, is a level 5 Dark Fiend monster with 2400 attack and 1000 defense, very close to Monarch stats. And if this card is tribute summoned, you can destroy any number of face-up monsters your opponent controls whose combined attack is less than or equal to the original attack of the monster tributed to tribute summon this card. Yeah, that's a weird little monarch, alright. It's a cool effect, I grant you, turning a monster into removal, especially if it was a big one. And it can be pretty satisfying. Though it depends on the kind of deck you're dueling against. If you're up against a bunch of weenies, that's great, you can probably take out 2 or 3. But if they've got some nasty powerhouses, you aren't getting a particularly strong exchange rate here, if any at all. Now, normally I wouldn't add a monster like this into the roster because, well, it is dark, and it cares about tributing, but not wholly in the way the rest of the cards do. It wasn't even part of the structure deck. But for some reason, this thing is exuding torment tokens, the thing we see in Lair of Darkness. So it must be canon to the setting, right? Even though the tokens make for some of the worst tribute fodder for this thing ever. Shouldn't this guy be in a Mementotlan deck or something? Diablos, King of the Abyss, is a level 7 Dark Dragon monster with 2800 attack and 1000 defense, also very close to Mega Monarch stats, that can't be special summoned. If you tribute summon this card, the tributes must be dark, and it can't be tributed by card effects while face up on the field. Once per turn, during your opponent's draw phase, before their normal draw, look at the top card of your opponent's deck, and if you do, place that card on either the top or the bottom of their deck. Yeah, this is what I'd expect from such an old card. Give it another year, and this is gonna hit 20 years old. That's terrifying. In short, I think this card is bad. You have to go through so many hoops just to get this online. You can't special summon it, so no cheating it out. And when you do tribute it, it's gotta be dark monsters. And what do you get for all of this? You get to decide if your opponent draws their next card or the one after that. It's completely sauceless effect-wise. So it's very good. This thing has a retrain that replaces all of the filler with killer. But the biggest design change is gonna be ditching the blue highlights for the iconic red ones. Sorry, but it's giving cool-headed, mysterious 6th Ranger vibes when you should clearly be aiming for big bad evil guy territory. Have some faith in yourself, you're the King of the Abyss for crying out loud. It's no Dark King of the Abyss, but that's gonna be a separate video. Darkest Diablos, Lord of the Lair, is a level 8 Dark Dragon monster with 3000 attack and 2000 defense, and your opponent can't tribute this face-up card on the field, and can't target it with card effects. If a dark monster you control is tributed, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your grave if it was there when that card was tributed, or from your hand, even if it wasn't in there. You can also tribute a dark monster to make your opponent place a card from their hand on either the top or the bottom of their deck. Now this is a boss monster. True, the effect is still kind of letting your opponent choose what gets hand ripped and if they get to have it back next turn isn't my favorite, but I choose to think of that as icing on the cake. When you get down to it, it's a 3k body that can't be targeted for effects, can't be tributed so it's safe during the mirror match, and comes back over and over again. And it's not difficult to bring out either. Arima can do it all by itself. Well, it and another monster it can tribute, so you can meet the requirements for the search. See, when you do that, you tribute a dark monster, so when it resolves, you can add Darkest Diablos to your hand, since it has at least 2000 defense. Then, when that resolves, its special summon trigger activates, and even though it wasn't in your hand when the monster was tributed, it was in your hand in time for the activation condition to be met, so presto, you've got a big dragon to start punching things, and maybe even hand ripping if you've got some spare dark monsters around. Do whatever you want. I think my favorite thing is that it just randomly synergizes with other decks that tribute dark monsters as part of their normal game plan. I remember seeing Sky Striker pilots experimenting with this since Rey tributes herself to pull off the quick swap. So if they needed another body to push for damage and weren't too keen on keeping their main monster zones clear, or just wanted more material for link summoning, this was a pretty cost-efficient method to do that. And I sure do love taking this into fun branded builds, especially in Domain, where we can trigger this off of tributing a Bestial to bring out Lubellion. This card is just really fun, and honestly, I think the demotion was good for him. A Lord is a little less grand than King, but with the lesser responsibilities, it looks like it could really let loose now. This next section is going to be a little infectious. While not tied specifically to the Lair cards, the Structure deck did come out with a new Virus card, while also printing every other core Virus card in the game, and it's easy to see why. In a theme all about tributing your opponent's monsters and making them dark, a series of iconic trap cards that needed to tribute dark monsters seemed like a clean fit. So let's go over all of the Virus trap cards, excluding the alien-related ones because they have their whole other video, and Virus Cannon. Sorry, if you wanted to be part of the crew, you would have gotten an alliterative name. Now, we can break down the Virus cards into a pretty distinct framework. The Viruses are all normal trap cards that tribute a dark monster which fits some kind of attack or defense requirement, and then applies a lingering effect to your opponent that lasts until their third turn after the trap card was activated, destroying cards of a particular type that they already have between their field and hand, as well as any that they draw during that time, having a side effect of letting you see what your opponent draws. Thematically, this represents a rampant infection that's made its way not just to you, but your whole deck, killing off large swaths of monsters that are susceptible to the plague. We'll skip the most iconic one for now because that has a huge story attached to it, so let's quickly go over the rest. Deck Devastation Virus needs a dark monster with 2000 or more attack, which destroys monsters with 1500 or less attack. Eradicator Epidemic Virus needs a dark monster with 2500 or more attack and destroys either your opponent's spell or trap cards, whichever one you choose at activation, and is arguably, aside from the original Crush card, most controversial of the Virus cards. Full Force Virus needs a dark monster with 2000 or more defense and destroys all monsters with 1500 or less defense. And then there's Grinning Grave Virus, which breaks the mold a bit. It needs a dark monster with 3000 or less attack, and then your opponent destroys monsters of their choice from among their hand or deck for every 500 attack the tributed monster had. If the tributed monster had 2000 or more attack, you apply that 3-turn lingering effect, but this time destroying all monsters that they draw, regardless of their attack or defense. Also, any monster destroyed and sent to the grave by this card's effect can't activate their effects during the same turn. This is notable because it doesn't destroy any on-field monsters, and doesn't necessarily pop any monsters in hand. Given the choice, most opponents will just blast monsters from their deck to keep their in-hand cards safe, not to mention setting up any other interactions that might be grave positive. But because of the very wide range of monsters that can be tributed for its activation, as well as the fact that it kills any monster regardless of matchup, Grinning Grave is probably the most reliable one to use in a Lair deck, so that's something. A notable thing about these virus cards, though, is that they don't check cards that are added to your hand from any zone, just the ones that you draw. So if you have a way to tutor up a monster, they'll be safe. I guess those cards have a kind of quarantine suit on or something. But all of these pale in comparison to their predecessor, the origin of the virus cards and the one with the most history. Crush Card Virus was a normal trap card that tributed a dark monster with 1,000 or less attack that destroyed all monsters with 1,500 or more attack. Now, in the modern game, monsters of all kinds of attack values are useful. If you lose access to monsters of one range, you can probably make do with the other, especially because you aren't going to inadvertently lose a monster from the extra deck since none of the viruses attack that. But back in the day, this card was crippling. Smaller monsters existed that served some function, but if you wanted to win the game, you needed monsters that had some staying power. So the player that got to resolve Crush Card Virus usually had 3 turns to do whatever they wanted, and that was plenty of time to close out the game. But it wasn't just that the card was very powerful, the real notoriety came from its exclusivity. You see, Crush Card was not first released in packs, but as a Shonen Jump Championship prize card, which was what YCS's used to be when Upper Deck was still in charge of distributing Yu-Gi-Oh! In the States. Despite its ridiculously finite number, the card was still legal to play in standard format, and for the short time this was a prize card exclusive, it tore up tournaments. Legends have it that the duelists who had earned this most powerful of tools banded together, pooling their copies and distributing them amongst themselves to maintain their competitive edge against the rest of the player base. A real rich getting richer situation. Now, in a kind of anime sense, this is kind of cool. A legendary card of insurmountable power, available only to those strong enough to prove they could wield its might. Makes for a good plot hook, I think. But I doubt the underdogs of the competitive circuit felt quite so enthused when going up against it. Whatever your thoughts on the situation are, the fact of the matter is that if you weren't part of the in-group that was accumulating crush cards, your chances of winning events that they participated in tanked. And there was no way you could interact with the game's official channels to rectify this. You either knew the right people or were willing to shell out huge bank to get your hands on one. Now, this card was around starting in January of 2007, and this cabal of viral vitriol would hold steady for about a year. But then, the company remembered that they liked money. So in April of 2008, this card was released to the general populace in the very first Gold Series packs. Now, the only barrier to entry for this was how many packs you were willing to crack, or how much you were willing to shell out for singles. But that reign of terror didn't last for long, because in September of 2009, only about a year and a half later, this card got banned. Rest in peace, wallets of whales everywhere. Now, that might have been the end of it, but once again, the devs realized that they liked money. And while they were no strangers to printing this card even after its banning, it wasn't driving a lot of demand. After all, you might pull a card you can't use. Not a very good value proposition. But they couldn't just unban it because it was far too powerful, even then. So if they wanted to unban it, they'd have to change it. Konami would sell the legend of the Crush card, but not its power. So in March of 2015, Crush Card Virus was reprinted in Premium Gold Return of the Bling, with it going to Limited the following April. But what was changed? Well, the tribute requirement remains the same, but past that point, it's almost a completely different card. Now, this card prevents your opponent from taking damage until the end of the next turn after this card resolves. Then, you get to look at their hands and field and blast all the monsters with 1500 or more attack. We still have that part, but it no longer lasts for 3 turns. And that's not all. After you do that, your opponent can then destroy up to 3 monsters with 1500 or more attack in their deck. Now, if we only look at this from an anime appreciator's lens, this is kinda sick, because in the show, at least one version of Crush Card Virus doesn't just go after the cards on the field, the hand, or that are drawn, it goes after all the monsters in the main deck. Nothing is safe. So a rebrand that kinda does that has some flavor. But you get into the mechanics of things and you realize that this card has been gutted beyond reproach. The damage protection might have been fair if the rest of the card was as strong as ever, but not only did we lose the lingering effect, the opponent basically gets 3 Foolish Burials. Granted, it can't be for anything they want, there is that attack floor, but there are still plenty of reasons to get rid of 3 1500 or more attack monsters and shoving them into your grave, especially if they have grave effects. Your opponent can farm so much value off of this, and is probably the reason why Grinning Grave Virus does something similar, but makes sure to shut off the grave effects that time. Fast forward to April 2016, and Crush Card is now completely unlimited, for the reason that so many cards are. They're a shadow of their former self, and are no longer a threat to the game. Another victim of the Errata Purge. You hate to see it. But there is still some hope left for this card. I was meaning to wait until a certain milestone video to break this one out, but hey, a little teaser never hurt nobody, now did it. If you're familiar with Crush Card Virus's anime appearances, you'll know that the one and only Seto Kaiba is the one that makes the most use of it. And as someone who has main character privileges, he also has the benefit of being one of the 3 wielders of the legendary Dragons of Atlantis. His associated draconic ally, Critias, has a fang that turns trap cards into fusion monsters, and Crush Card Virus was one such recipient of its power, creating the dastardly Doom Virus Dragon, a level 4 Dark Dragon fusion monster with 1900 attack and 1500 defense that must be special summoned with the Fang of Critias, using Crush Card Virus. If this card is special summoned, look at your opponent's hand, all monsters they control, and all cards they draw until the end of their 3rd turn after this effect's activation, and destroy all those monsters with 1500 or more attack. So yeah, that's pre-nerf Crush Card Virus's effect, on legs! Now, thankfully, it's not exactly easy to get a hold of. It must be special summoned by Critias, which means that even the newly unbanned Metamorphosis, I can't believe I'm saying this, does not instantly bring this card back into contention. But because the effect triggers on any special summon of this card, not checking if it was summoned properly, anything that ignores summoning conditions could still call upon the ancient curse once again. Do you think that this is why Kaiba is rocking a monster called Pandemic Dragon in the Dark Side of Dimensions movie? Lastly, let's wrap up with a few other fun cards you can use if you're going all in on the eat your opponent's cards strategy. 2 archetypes right off the bat make phenomenal usage of it. First up, being Infernoid. Now, they already have a field spell, but it sucks, so who cares? The best part is, instead of tributing your own monsters for the Grave Banish or negates from the larger ones, you can just make your opponent pay for them. There's also Ogdoadics, a series of reptiles that tribute monsters for a variety of purposes, oftentimes reborning themselves from the grave. And also, they have a field spell already, but it sucks, so who cares? Dark Light is kind of like a pseudo-virus card. You tribute a dark monster with 1500 or more attack to blast all monsters special summoned that turn. It's situational, but can get you out of a bind if you expect your opponent to start building boards. I also like hitting them with Dark Spirit Art Greed. Now a card that runs the risk of you minusing a ton just pays for itself no matter what, with the occasional upside of you getting some sweet draws out of it. Super Polymerization is a card that benefits a ton from this card being on the field. 2 of the most common monsters run to make the best of it, Garura and Muddragon of the Swamp, both ask for the material monsters to have the same attribute, so making everything dark solves that no matter what the matchup is. And Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, as well as its heavenly counterpart, are easy includes as targets here, as well as the frightening Predaplant Trifio Veritum, if you need the raw sphere mode version of Super Poly to resolve. Beat Cop from the Underworld is basically an auto-include, loath as I am to give any credit to pigs. Lair of Darkness ensures that you'll have used 2 dark monsters as material to unlock its effect, and now you contribute the opponent's monster to get that protection counter. Some other fun cards include a Pigeonin, the Impersonation Invader, a pseudo-kaiju under Lair that comes with a little token, giving you 2 free pieces of link material while providing removal. This next one is part of a series of cards that I avoided talking about here, because while they tribute a card, they also use the tributed monster to check some kind of status on it, like attack, defense, level, attribute, or type. And those can sometimes be a bit too specific for a general use card. But I make an exception for Stand-In, which I think can be a useful side deck pick. If you're up against a deck that uses a monotype and attribute, you can tribute off one of their monsters monsters to reborn another from their graveyard to your field, or perhaps even get back the monster that you attributed. And if you're running a deck with normal monsters in them, I hear Primite is a little popular, you can run Cosmo Brain. Turn your opponent's monsters into your normal ones. Another win for the Tri-Horn Dragon crew. And that's the ups and downs of the Lair of Darkness. This has been one of the jankier outings in the Explained series, I admit, but I think that comes with the territory of covering a series of cards and not a strict archetype. But with that unbound structure comes potential. It's only a matter of time before the Lair cards, rife with possibility as they are, show up in another deck to wreak havoc on the game. After all, who doesn't like a discount? But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are there any themes you like splashing the Lair cards or viruses into? And if we got ourselves a new virus card, what alliterative epithet would you saddle them with? Remember, C through G have already been taken. We do not accept duplicates. Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, check out one of my videos in the sidebar to help me show up on your homepage, and be sure to share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout while helping out the channel. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media, and the Critic of Innocence, Nebula Navigators, 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Avi Chali, Battle Axe, Beastsman, Charlie Mercury, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Eric, Frankie, Great Big Pillock, Groog, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Ignavius, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Japan Man, Carp, Marion James E. Picata, Meme King, Muse Clark, Neon Yaminair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Pact Poos, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, That One Dumbass and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders, Animasta, Entharak, Anything You Can Say, Blitzwolf, Chaz Ghost, Christopher Fuss, again, Cool Trainer Dark, Da Tenchi 67, Dr. Entity RIP, Drachenwald, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Inblink, J.A. Flair, Julian Marquis, Kale the Dragon, Kryptonian Blurred, Lobomaru 02, Manga Pages, Millennia Asta, Mr. Machina, Natiel Lee Alexander, Not Al Gore, Obsidian, Rhyme Kairos, Rogue Wolf, Seraph SG, Shizuka Nijimura, Simic Toadstool, Sonic 21 Blast, Stepfin Huntsman, The Legendary Raven, The Queen of Time, Tiger X2476, Tristan O'Meara, Zayden, Zaldreka, and Zentha, as well as all the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you'd like to see another archetype adjacent video, check out this one I made covering all the Archfiend cards. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.